Welcome, gentle listener, to Whispers of the Night. This is a space where stories breathe softly, where forgotten worlds return as dreams, and where your mind is invited to rest. Tonight's tale is called The Loom of Lost Legends. Before we begin, take a moment to settle in. Find a comfortable place, let your shoulders relax, and allow the noise of the day to fade. If these quiet journeys bring you peace, consider subscribing to Whispers of the Night. Your support helps this channel continue sharing calm stories, soothing voices, and gentle escapes into dreamlike worlds. You may also like this video, or leave a soft comment below. Truly helps more listeners find their way here. Now, take a slow breath in and out. When you're ready, let the story begin. Close your eyes gently or soften your gaze. There is nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to go. Allow your breathing to slow, natural and unforced. Inhale quietly through your nose and exhale through your mouth. Feel the weight of your body supported beneath you. Your feet grow warm and relaxed. Your legs loosen, releasing the tension they carried through the day. With every breath out, your thoughts begin to drift, like leaves floating on calm water. There is no need to follow them, just let them pass. Your chest rises and falls slowly now. Your shoulders soften, your jaw, your brow smooths. Imagine a gentle twilight settling around you. The air is cool, peaceful, and safe. Each sound around you fades into the background, becoming part of a distant hush. You are here, you are calm, you are ready to listen. As the world grows quieter, allow the story to unfold naturally, carrying you into Dreamland, where legends whisper and rest comes easily. The Loom of Lost Legends. The hall where threads sleep. Alawan Thalor walked along the edge of Dreamland, where the soft haze of twilight lingered like a reluctant memory. The ground beneath her feet was smooth, yet uneven, as if time itself had forgotten to tend to this place. Moss clung to fractured stone walls, and delicate tendrils of ivy crept along the edges of crumbling archways, moving gently in a wind she could not feel. The air was cool, filled with a quiet hum, almost imperceptible, like a whispered song she had never heard before yet somehow recognized. It was not a sound carried by her ears alone, but by the very bones of the hall, vibrating softly beneath her skin, stirring a sense of familiarity she could not place. Her footsteps echoed lightly in the cavernous space, carrying her further into the shadowed heart of the hall. Shafts of muted silver light fell through narrow gaps in the roof, where the stone had cracked centuries ago, creating long, uneven patterns across the flagstones. Dust motes floated lazily in the light, suspended, as though frozen mid-dance, turning the air into a faint, shimmering veil. Every corner seemed to hum with potential, Every shadow held the memory of stories that had been lost. Ilawan's hands brushed against the cold stone as she moved, her fingers tracing the worn edges of the walls. She felt the hall respond in subtle ways. The threads of history resonated beneath her touch, tremors of old magic that whispered of times when Dreamland had been younger and wilder, when legends had walked freely and freely had walked. She paused at an archway, peering into the next chamber, and saw it immediately. The loom dot, it stood in the center of the hall, a structure as old as the stones themselves. Its frame was carved from a pale, unearthly wood that seemed to drink in the soft light around it, glowing faintly from within as though it held a secret heart. Threads stretched across it in delicate, impossible patterns, glowing softly in hues that shifted from silver to gold, from pale blue to the faintest violet. They pulsed gently, not with sound but with intention, vibrating with a quiet life that seemed to reach toward her. She could feel it even before she stepped closer, a pull in her chest, a resonance in her heart that made her fingers itch with longing and trepidation alike. She circled the loom slowly, eyes drinking in the detail of its weaving. Each thread seemed to carry its own story, some bright and hopeful, others dark and frayed. Tiny motes of light drifted along the strands, forming shapes that almost resembled faces, gestures, and fleeting moments that flickered in and out of perception. Ilawan could not name them, yet she knew them. Somewhere deep within her, she understood the voices woven into each fiber. She knew that the loom was not merely a tool, but a repository of Dreamland's forgotten histories, a vessel for legends that had been erased from memory. The air around the loom thickened, as though acknowledging her presence, and she felt a shiver of both awe and fear. She stepped closer, careful not to disturb the threads with an unsteady hand. Her gaze drifted over the patterns, drawn inexorably to a section that shimmered with a soft blue glow, faintly pulsing in time with her heartbeat. She reached out, hesitating just a moment before her fingers brushed against a single thread. It was finer than silk, warmer than she expected, and the moment she touched it, the entire hall seemed to exhale. A hum rose from the loom, low and sonorous, vibrating through the floor, the walls, and her very bones. It was not a voice she could hear with her ears, but one she felt deep within her chest, resonating in her pulse and in the rhythm of her breath. The threads responded to her touch, shifting and twisting, glowing brighter where her fingers lingered, forming patterns that seemed to flow toward her as if inviting her to follow. A warmth spread along her arm and into her chest, not like fire, but like the comforting weight of recognition, a memory she had not known she carried. Ilawan withdrew her hand slightly, afraid that she might disrupt what she did not understand, yet unable to pull away entirely. The loom seemed alive, aware of her in return. Its threads quivered and shimmered, forming shapes more distinct than before, tiny, luminous silhouettes that appeared to be moving through some hidden realm beyond sight. Some were warriors, faces etched with determination. Others were soft, gentle figures whose expressions were tinged with sorrow. She realized that these were echoes of stories long erased, of heroes whose deeds had faded, of sacrifices that had been forgotten by Dreamland itself. She knelt beside the loom, tracing a finger along a delicate strand that glowed with a faint, violet hue. It shimmered in response, twisting slightly, curling around her hand, as though welcoming her touch. Her heart ached with recognition. These threads held truth, not fantasy. They were the remnants of things that had once been memories that deserved to be remembered. And yet she sensed the weight of their presence. To touch them was to accept responsibility. To weave was to bind herself to the fate of what the loom held. She leaned closer, eyes scanning the intricate patterns. The loom seemed to breathe, each pulse of light carrying a story she could almost hear. Fragments of voices brushing against her mind, whispers of triumph and defeat, loss and joy, moments of quiet heroism and fleeting heartbreak. The hall itself seemed to listen, standing silently around her, bearing witness. Alawan felt the enormity of what she had discovered. She understood that this hall had been waiting for her, that the loom had not simply been abandoned, but had been preserved, waiting for the one who could feel, understand, and honor the stories it held. A faint breeze drifted through the broken ceiling, carrying with it the scent of moss, stone, and something faintly floral, as though the hall remembered the gardens that had once surrounded it. The threads quivered in response, small ripples of light traveling across their surface. Alawan felt a pang of uncertainty. She was alone, and the hall was silent, save for the loom's quiet resonance. No one would know if she disturbed it, if she failed, if she allowed a story to slip through her fingers. And yet, there was an undeniable calling, a pull that seemed woven into the very fabric of her being. With a deep breath, she allowed her hands to hover over the threads, feeling their warmth, the subtle vibration of life that ran through each one. Slowly, she began to weave, guided not by knowledge or training, but by instinct and by the deep recognition of what the loom required. Patterns formed under her fingers, tentative at first, then more confident as the threads responded, curling and twisting with her movements. Light flared softly where her hands met the strands, illuminating her calm, thoughtful face, casting gentle shadows that danced across the walls of the hall. She felt the loom respond as if acknowledging her presence. Fully, the threads weaving themselves more intricately, guiding her, supporting her in ways she could not articulate. Tiny, glowing shapes swirled around her, fleeting glimpses of heroes, poets, and unseen figures that seemed to reach out through the threads. Alawan's heart swelled with a strange mix of wonder and sorrow. These were not mere stories. They were lives, dreams, moments of existence that had been erased, preserved only in the quiet resonance of this ancient loom. Time became fluid around her. She did not notice the passage of hours, or perhaps it was minutes, or maybe it was centuries. The hall seemed to exist outside of ordinary measures. Her focus was absolute. Every movement of her fingers, every slight shift of her hands, shaping not just threads, but the memory of a world that had been forgotten. She realized with awe that the loom did not merely record history, it restored it. It did not fabricate, it remembered. And in that remembering, Alawan found herself at the center of something far greater than she had ever imagined. Her chest tightened with the weight of responsibility, but there was no fear, only reverence. She understood that she had been chosen, that the loom had recognized her as someone capable of feeling the depths of Dreamland's forgotten stories, of weaving them without distorting their truth. Her touch was gentle yet deliberate, threads with care, allowing the hall to witness the quiet miracle of remembrance. Each pulse of light, each shimmer along the fibers, spoke of forgotten truths being restored, of stories returning to the world they had once belonged to. Eloan paused for a moment, letting her hands hover above the glowing threads, feeling the hum of the loom against her palms. She took a slow breath, inhaling the cool, fragrant air of the hall, and exhaled with a soft sense of resolve. This place, this loom, the threads that carried the weight of forgotten lives, they were no longer merely objects of curiosity. They were a calling, a covenant she could not ignore. She understood with a quiet certainty that she had become the weaver of these lost legends, the bridge between what had been forgotten and what must now live again. Her eyes scanned the loom one final time before she rose, standing fully and letting the soft glow of the threads illuminate her calm, reflective face. For the first time, she felt a sense of belonging in this place, an acknowledgement that the hall, the loom, and the stories within it had been waiting for her all along. She knew that this was only the beginning, that the threads would continue to guide her, and that Dreamland itself would change in response to what she wove. Yet, for now, there was a stillness, a quiet understanding, and a sense of profound connection that filled the hall with warmth despite its age and shadows. Eloan Thaler stepped back slowly, her gaze lingering on the loom one last time. She could feel its recognition, a subtle pulse that matched the rhythm of her heartbeat, and she allowed herself a small, peaceful smile. She did not know what stories would come next, nor what challenges the threads might bring. All she knew was that she had found her place at the edge of Dreamland, in a hall where threads slept, and that she had been chosen to awaken them. With that thought, she straightened her posture, inhaled the cool air once more, and prepared herself to embrace the weaving of legends, knowing that the quiet hum of the loom would guide her every step, every breath, and every decision in the days to come. Voices in the weave. Eloan Thaler sat before the ancient loom, her hands hovering above the softly glowing threads, and a quiet reverence settled over her. The hall seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for the first motion, the first whisper of recognition that she could become part of the loom's work. The threads pulsed faintly, ripples of silver and gold running through the fibers, as if aware of her presence, as if they had sensed the heartbeat of the one who would awaken them. She took a deep, steadying breath, allowing herself to feel the hum that resonated through the stone floor, up her legs, into the chest, and through her fingertips. It was not sound in the conventional sense. It was memory, it was weight, it was longing. Her fingers touched the first thread cautiously. It was warmer than silk, smoother than she could have imagined, and the instant she made contact, a wave of light seemed to ripple outward. She pulled back for just a moment, startled by the sensation, yet the tug of curiosity and destiny was stronger than hesitation. The thread shimmered under her touch, and she could see hints of movement within it, tiny, luminous shapes that shifted with soft, fluid grace. It was as though a story had been waiting for her to release it, to guide it back into the world. She felt a tremor of awe and a faint pang of responsibility, knowing that she was not simply observing, but participating in the rebirth of something long forgotten. Slowly, she let her fingers brush against more threads, weaving gently, testing the rhythm of the loom. The hall seemed to hum with acknowledgement, faint vibrations echoing in the walls, the arches, even in her bones. Each thread responded to her touch, glowing brighter where her hands lingered, curling and twisting with subtle movements that suggested intention and sentience. Faint shapes began to emerge, translucent and flickering in the glow. The silhouette of a knight kneeling with a bowed head, a queen raising her hands in silent command, figures in the midst of sacrifice or triumph, faces etched with grief and hope alike. They were faint, ephemeral, yet unmistakably alive, and each one seemed to acknowledge her presence with a gentle sway or a shimmer of light. Iloan's heart ached with recognition, and her breath caught in her throat. These were not fantasies, not illusions conjured from her own imagination. They were truths that had been erased, fragments of history's dreamland had chosen to forget. Some of the figures were joyous, holding small moments of peace and victory, while others carried sorrow, wounds that had never healed, losses that had never been remembered. She could feel them all, not as separate stories, but as a continuous thread of existence, a tapestry of life and meaning that had been waiting for her touch to reawaken it as she worked, guiding the threads through gentle, deliberate motions. The hall itself seemed to come alive. Dust motes glimmered like stars in the faintly pulsing light, and the air carried a faint fragrance, earthy and sweet, that reminded her of forgotten gardens and lost seasons. The loom's energy seemed to wrap around her, not constraining her, but enveloping her in its quiet authority, offering guidance and yet demanding attention, respect, and care. Her fingers traced the threads, twisting, lifting, and laying them down with precision born not of practice but of intuition. And with each movement, new shapes appeared, tiny glimpses of moments she could not fully name, yet recognized in the marrow of her bones. Time began to stretch and bend around her. The hall, the loom, and the threads became the center of a reality that felt simultaneously eternal and fleeting. Minutes passed unnoticed, the outside world a distant murmur she could no longer perceive. She was immersed entirely in the weave, her senses heightened to the subtle pulses and glows, the flickering silhouettes, and the whispered echoes that the threads carried. There was no separation between her hands, her mind, and the loom. She was part of the weave as much as it was part of her. The whispers became clearer, though still subtle, carried not through sound, but through resonance. She felt them brush against her consciousness, the sorrow of a warrior fallen in an unrecorded battle, the quiet courage of a healer who had tended lives unseen, the hope of a child whose laughter had once brightened a forgotten hall. The threads shimmered as these echoes passed, forming faint outlines in the soft glow, weaving themselves into patterns that seemed almost to move independently, yet still guided by her hands. Iloan understood that the loom was teaching her, reminding her that every story, every legend was bound to her attention and care. It was not creation, it was restoration, a delicate and profound responsibility. She paused for a moment, letting her hands hover over a particularly bright cluster of threads. A scene formed there more clearly than any other. A figure kneeling in the dust, arms outstretched in both surrender and hope, and beside it, a faint, luminous companion whose presence radiated quiet warmth. The tableau shimmered as though alive, breathing with the memory of its existence. Ilawan felt a wave of tenderness and sorrow simultaneously, the weight of knowing that these lives had been erased, and the honor of bringing them back into some form of acknowledgement. She lowered her hands and touched the threads lightly, guiding them to connect with others, linking fragments of stories into a flowing sequence that pulsed like the rhythm of a living heart. A subtle breeze drifted through the hall, carrying the scent of distant forests and rain-soaked stone, stirring the threads just enough to make the light shimmer. Ilawan's hair moved gently in response, a soft halo around her calm, thoughtful face. She felt her own emotions subtly influencing the weave, the faint anxiety of responsibility, the quiet hope of restoration, the tender joy of witnessing moments long forgotten. The loom seemed to respond, glowing warmer where her intention was pure and precise, dimming slightly where she hesitated or faltered. It was a living instrument, alive with history and expectation, reflecting her own presence back into the patterns. She wove hours or what she perceived as hours passed. Shapes and forms became more intricate, weaving together like the layers of a memory slowly returning to consciousness. Heroes she could not name moved silently among the threads, their faces etched with the emotion of lives fully felt, yet entirely unseen. Scenes of beauty and heartbreak unfolded in luminous detail, as though she were both an observer and a participant, a keeper and a witness. Each motion of her hands, each delicate tug of a thread, allowed these stories to emerge more fully, bridging the gap between what had been forgotten and what might now be remembered. She felt a profound connection to the loom, a bond that went beyond touch or sight. It was a resonance in her soul, a quiet acknowledgement that she had been chosen to bear witness to these forgotten truths. The threads pulsed with her heartbeat, vibrating in harmony with her breath and the rhythm of her motions. The hall seemed to echo with the energy of 1,000 lives, silent yet profoundly present, carrying their histories in shimmering whispers that drifted softly through the air. Ilawan's eyes softened as she worked, calm and steady, her blue-gray gaze reflecting the thread's glow. She began to sense patterns, forming not random, not chaotic, but deliberate and purposeful. The loom was guiding her toward a greater understanding, showing her the relationships between stories, the way one life influenced another, the interweaving of joy, sorrow, and hope across generations. It was overwhelming in its magnitude, yet she felt a quiet confidence settle over her. She could do this. She was meant to do this. As the light shifted and shimmered through the hall, faint echoes of voices seemed to brush against her ears, not heard in words, but in tone and feeling. A hero's pride, a poet's melancholy, the quiet gratitude of a healer, all pressed gently against her consciousness. She could not distinguish them individually, yet she recognized them as distinct, alive, and in need of her attention. The loom was alive with the memory of Dreamland itself, and she was its conduit, the hands through which the forgotten might be honored once more. She paused again, taking a breath and letting her hands hover above the threads. A sense of calm and clarity filled her, tempered with awe. She understood that she was not weaving for herself, nor for fame or recognition, but for the stories themselves. The loom's task was sacred, demanding, and infinite, and she was its willing servant, its chosen weaver. The threads vibrated faintly under her fingers, as if acknowledging her understanding, and she allowed a small smile to rest on her lips, subtle but genuine. She had found her place within this hall, her connection to the threads, and her role in the restoration of what had been lost. Night deepened outside the cracks in the ceiling, though time had little meaning here. The hall glowed softly with the warmth of the threads, and Alawan continued to weave with quiet dedication, each motion deliberate, each pull of a strand measured and thoughtful. The silhouettes of forgotten heroes, companions, and lost figures wove themselves around her, forming delicate, interconnected patterns of history and memory. She could feel the loom's satisfaction, the gentle approval in the way threads pulsed and shimmered in response to her touch. Finally, she lowered her hands, gazing at the slowly coalescing patterns in awe. The room felt alive, filled with stories that had been silent for centuries now, breathing once more. The weight of the past, the echoes of lives long forgotten, settled around her like a comforting presence, and she understood that she had become part of the weave. Her responsibility was immense, yet the quiet reverence and connection she felt reassured her. She had listened, she had guided, and she had honored the voices of Dreamland's forgotten legends. Alawan stood slowly, straightening, letting her hands rest at her sides. The hall was silent, except for the faint hum of the loom, now pulsing, gently in steady rhythm. Dust motes floated in the beams of faint moonlight, catching the glow of threads that carried the weight of lives restored. She exhaled softly, a mixture of relief, awe, and determination, and allowed herself a moment to feel the enormity of what had transpired. This was only the beginning, she knew, but for the first time, the hall, the loom, and the stories themselves seemed to recognize her as their keeper, their weaver, and their witness. When dreams begin to tear, Alawan Fowler felt the change before she saw it. The hall, once steady and quietly breathing with the loom's gentle hum, seemed to waver, as though the air itself had grown uncertain of its shape. The light around the threads flickered, not dimming but stretching, bending in subtle ways that made the stone arches appear longer, taller, then suddenly closer than before. She steadied herself instinctively, placing one hand against the cool stone floor, grounding herself as the hum of the loom deepened into something heavier, more insistent. The threads reacted almost immediately. Where they had once flowed in calm, deliberate patterns, they now quivered with restless energy, glowing brighter and dimmer in irregular pulses. Colors bled into one another, silver melting into blue, gold fracturing into pale violet, creating shifting patterns that refused to settle. Eloan's heart tightened as she realized that the legends she had restored were no longer content to remain echoes. They were stirring, pressing against the boundaries that had once kept Dreamland stable and whole. She rose slowly, her movements careful, as though the floor beneath her might shift if she moved too quickly. The hall seemed larger now, its edges stretching outward. the far walls dissolving into hazy reflections of places she did not recognize. For a brief moment, she glimpsed a shoreline where waves curled backward into the sky. Then a forest whose trees grew sideways, their roots tangled in the air. These visions flickered and vanished, replaced by stone and shadow once more. But the unease remained. Dreamland was changing, responding to the truths she had reawakened. The loom pulsed sharply, a surge of energy radiating outward that made Iloan gasp softly. She felt it wrap around her, not physically, but in a way that pressed against her thoughts and emotions. The loom was no longer a distant artifact she guided with careful hands. It was bound to her now, responding directly to her inner state. A ripple of fear passed through her chest, and the threads flared violently in response, twisting and snapping back into place with visible strain. She inhaled slowly, forcing calm into her breath, and the threads softened, though they did not return entirely to their former serenity. She stepped closer, compelled by a pull she could neither resist nor fully understand. The air around the loom shimmered with instability, fragments of restored legends appearing more vividly than before. Figures emerged not as faint silhouettes, but as clearer forms. Heroes standing at the edge of battles that had never been remembered. Healers caught mid-motion as they reached for lives long lost. Poets frozen in the act of writing words that had never been spoken aloud. They did not speak, yet their presence was overwhelming. Their existence pressing against the fabric of the hall as if demanding space, acknowledgement, reality. Iloan's pulse quickened. She realized, with a sharp clarity that made her chest ache, that these legends were not meant to coexist freely with the present dreamland. They belonged to different times, different truths, and now that they were stirring together, the world itself was struggling to reconcile them. The hall trembled faintly, stones groaning under invisible strain, and the light fractured into overlapping layers, as though multiple moments were trying to occupy the same space. She reached for the loom, placing both hands against its frame. It was warm beneath her palms, warmer than before, and the hum intensified, resonating through her arms and into her chest. Images flooded her mind, scenes of Dreamland as it once was, vibrant and untamed, and as it was now, softened by time and forgetting. She saw how the loss of legends had shaped the present, how the erasure of sacrifice and courage had left subtle gaps in the world's foundation. Restoring those truths had begun to heal those gaps, but it had also reopened wounds that Dreamland had sealed to survive. The floor shifted beneath her feet, and she stumbled, catching herself against the loom as the hall warped again. Walls rippled like reflections on water, and the ceiling seemed to recede into an endless height before snapping back into place. Iloan's breath came shallow as she fought to steady herself, to remain present amid the bending of reality. She felt the looms pull tighten, threads extending outward, wrapping invisibly around her will, her emotions, her very sense of self. She understood then that the loom was not merely reacting to her actions, it was responding to her inner world. Her uncertainty fed the instability, her fear amplified the distortions. She closed her eyes, drawing inward, focusing on the steady rhythm of her breath, the quiet strength she had felt when she first touched the threads. Gradually, the violent flickering eased, though the hall remained subtly unstable, its edges still shimmering with unresolved tension. Opening her eyes, she saw that the legends had shifted as well. The figures no longer stood alone, but overlapped, moments bleeding into one another, battles merging with celebrations, sacrifices entwined with triumphs. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once, a reminder that history was not meant to exist as a single, unbroken truth, but as layered experiences shaped by time and perspective. Dreamland was struggling because it was being asked to hold too much at once. Eloan's hands trembled as she reached for the threads again. She felt their resistance now, a subtle tension that had not been there before, as though they were pulling back even as they reached for her. She guided them gently, attempting to restore order, but the patterns refused to settle. Each attempt to stabilize one section caused another to fray, threads loosening and snapping back with visible strain. The loom's hum grew erratic, echoing her own conflicted emotions. A wave of guilt washed over her. She had wanted to restore truth, to honor forgotten lives, but she had not fully understood the cost. Dreamland was fragile, its peace built upon selective memory and quiet compromise. By awakening everything at once, she had disrupted that balance, forcing the world to confront more than it could safely contain. The realization pressed heavily against her chest, and she sank to her knees, overwhelmed by the weight of responsibility. The hall responded instantly. The floor softened beneath her, rippling like water, and the legends surged closer, their forms more defined, their presence more insistent. She felt their longing, their need to be acknowledged fully, to exist beyond whispers and shadows. Tears pricked at her eyes as she realized that there was no simple solution, no way to honor every story without consequence. To weave was to choose, and every choice would shape Dreamland in irreversible ways. She steadied herself, placing her palms flat against the floor, grounding herself once more. The loom's energy wrapped around her, not as a restraint, but as a bond, a reminder that she was not separate from this process. Her emotions, her resolve, her compassion, all of it fed directly into the weave. She had become the axis around which the loom turned, the living point of balance between past and present. Slowly, she rose again, her movements deliberate, her expression calm despite the turmoil around her. She returned to the loom, touching the threads with renewed intention, not to force them into order, but to listen. The distortions softened slightly as she allowed herself to feel the legends without judgment, acknowledging their truths without trying to anchor them fully into the present. The hall's trembling eased, though it did not disappear entirely. Time bent strangely as she worked. Moments stretched and compressed, the light shifting unpredictably, unstuck, bleeding into one another through the cracks in the ceiling. Eloan lost track of how long she stood there, guiding threads, calming surges, allowing some stories to settle while letting others remain fluid, dreamlike. The loom responded to her growing understanding, its hum smoothing into a steadier rhythm, though the underlying tension remained like a distant storm. Exhaustion crept into her limbs, but she did not stop. She could feel the loom's bond tightening, weaving itself deeper into her sense of self. Her emotions mattered now more than ever. Her calm stabilized the hall. Her doubt threatened to unravel it. She understood that this burden was not temporary. Once awakened, the loom could not be ignored, and neither could the consequences of her weaving. At last, the hall settled into a fragile equilibrium. The walls stopped rippling, the light steadied, and the legends receded slightly, their forms becoming less intrusive, more like echoes once again. Eloan exhaled slowly, her shoulders sagging with fatigue and relief. The world was not fully healed nor fully broken. It hovered in a delicate state. She stepped back from the loom, her gaze lingering on the softly glowing threads. They pulsed gently now, responding to her steadier emotions, reflecting the fragile balance she had managed to restore. She felt changed, heavier somehow, as though the weight of Dreamland itself rested within her chest. The realization did not frighten her as it once might have. Instead, it filled her with a quiet determination. Eloan Thaler understood now that weaving was not an act of creation alone, but of restraint, compassion, and choice. The dreams she had awakened had begun to tear the world apart, but they had also revealed the truth Dreamland had hidden from itself. As she stood in the shifting light of the hall, bound to the loom by more than touch, she accepted the burden that came with that truth, knowing that the fate of Dreamland would rise or fall with the steadiness of her hands and the clarity of her heart. The weaver's burden. Eloan Thaler began to notice the cost in quiet, unsettling ways. It was not sudden or violent, not marked by pain or spectacle, but by absence. A familiar warmth she had once associated with certain memories felt dulled, as though wrapped in fog. When she tried to recall the sound of laughter she knew had once mattered to her, the shape of it slipped away, leaving behind only the knowledge that something had been there. She stood before the loom, hands resting lightly against its frame, and felt a weight settle in her chest that had nothing to do with exhaustion. The hall was calm again, deceptively so. The stone walls no longer bent or shimmered, and the threads glowed with a soft, measured light, each strand resting in careful balance. Yet beneath that calm, Eloan sensed a quiet tension like the stillness before rain. The loom hummed steadily, but its resonance felt deeper now, closer to her own heartbeat. She could feel it inside her, an intimate presence that no longer required touch to be known. She reached for the threads, intending only to observe, but the moment her fingers hovered near them, a sharp tug pulled at her awareness. Images surfaced, unbidden moments she had woven only hours before, heroes standing at the edge of sacrifice, quiet lives ending without witness, promises made and broken in forgotten ages. Alongside them came something else, a subtle pull inward, as though the loom were reaching into her, drawing something out in exchange. Eloan gasped softly and withdrew her hand. Her heart raced, and she pressed her palm against her chest, grounding herself. She understood then, with a clarity that left her breathless, that the loom did not restore legends freely. Every truth it returned to Dreamland demanded a price, and that price was taken from the weaver herself. She tested it cautiously. She guided a single, faintly glowing thread into place, weaving it gently into a waiting pattern. As the light settled, a quiet warmth spread through the hall, but within her, something shifted. A memory, small, personal, once comforting, slipped from her grasp. She knew it had been hers, something tied to warmth and safety, but the details were gone. There was no pain, only a hollow space where certainty had once lived. Her hands trembled. She stepped back from the loom, dread and awe tangling in her chest. The cost was not random. The loom did not take arbitrarily. It responded to intention, to emotion. When she wove with tenderness, it drew from her tenderness. When she wove with sorrow, it drew from her sorrow. The legends were restored with the same essence that shaped them the first time: human feeling, sacrifice, and lived experience. And now that essence came from her. Ilawan sank slowly to the floor, the cool stone grounding her as she struggled to steady her thoughts. The hall seemed to lean closer, listening. The threads pulsed faintly, patient and expectant. She felt the forgotten voices stir again, not as demands, but as quiet pleas carried through the weave. They did not beg for power or dominion. They asked only to be remembered truthfully, to exist without distortion or erasure. Tears welled in her eyes, slipping silently down her cheeks. She understood their longing, felt it echo in her own chest. To forget was a kind of death, and these legends had already died once. To leave them silent now, knowing she could restore them, felt like a betrayal deeper than any cost she might pay. And yet the realization of what weaving demanded filled her with fear. How much could she lose before she ceased to recognize herself? She rose unsteadily and approached the loom again, resting her forehead briefly against its smooth frame. It was warm, almost comforting, and she felt its presence settle around her like an unspoken vow. The loom did not deceive her. It made no attempt to hide the truth. Every restored legend required balance, and balance demanded sacrifice. Dreamland's peace had been built on forgetting, and to undo that forgetting meant unmaking part of what currently existed. Ilawan straightened, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. Her expression grew thoughtful, resolute. She could not abandon the loom, not now, not knowing what she did. The burden was heavy, but it was hers, and she would not turn away from it. Still, she knew she could not weave blindly, guided only by compassion. She needed restraint, wisdom, and the courage to accept that she could not save every story without destroying herself and possibly Dreamland itself. She began to weave again, slower this time, more deliberate. She chose a thread that shimmered faintly, almost hesitant, and guided it gently into the pattern. As it settled, a quiet sadness bloomed within her, sharper than before. She felt the edges of a cherished emotion soften, dulling into something distant. She did not resist. She allowed the loss to pass through her, acknowledging it, honoring it, understanding that this, too, was part of the weave. The hall responded subtly. The light warmed, the threads settling into harmony, and the faint whispers softened into something calmer, more grateful. Ilawan felt a quiet affirmation ripple through the loom. Not approval, but recognition. She was learning. Hours passed in this measured rhythm. Each legend she restored took something different. Sometimes a memory, sometimes an emotion, sometimes a fragment of certainty she had once relied upon without thought. She learned to recognize the sensation before it fully took hold, the gentle pull inward, the quiet reshaping of her inner landscape. She adapted, weaving fewer threads at once, choosing carefully which stories to bring forward and which to leave resting for now. The struggle within her never fully eased. Each time she paused, the forgotten voices stirred again, countless and patient, filling the hall with silent expectation. She felt their weight constantly, a reminder of lives that had shaped Dreamland. Even if Dreamland no longer remembered them, ignoring them felt cruel. Answering them felt dangerous. She stood suspended between two truths, both heavy with consequence. At one point, exhaustion overtook her, and she lowered herself to sit beside the loom, her back against its frame. The threads glowed softly above her, casting gentle light across her calm but weary face. She closed her eyes and allowed herself a moment of stillness, feeling the quiet hum resonate through her. In that stillness, she sensed the full scope of her role, not just as a weaver, but as a vessel. The loom did not merely take from her, it shaped her, refining her into something capable of holding Dreamland's truths without shattering. She realized then that the burden was not meant to be endured without change. The loss she felt was not erasure, but transformation. What the loom took, it also reshaped, weaving it into something broader than her individual self. Her memories became shared echoes. Her emotions became part of a greater tapestry. Her sacrifices became the foundation upon which restored legends could rest without overwhelming the present. Understanding did not lessen the pain, but it gave it meaning. Ellawen opened her eyes, a quiet determination settling into her expression. She stood once more, placing her hands on the loom with steady resolve. She would continue, but not recklessly. She would listen, choose, and accept the cost with open eyes. Dreamland's peace mattered, but peace built on silence was fragile. Truth, even when painful, carried its own kind of harmony. As she resumed weaving, the hall seemed to breathe with her, light and shadow moving in gentle rhythm. The looms hum-steadied, reflecting her growing balance. The forgotten voices softened, no longer pressing urgently, but waiting with trust. Ellawen felt the burden settle more naturally on her shoulders, not lighter, but better balanced. She knew the cost would continue. She knew there would be moments when the weight would feel unbearable, when the loss would cut deeper than she expected. But she also knew that turning away was no longer an option. She was bound to the loom, to Dreamland, and to the stories that had shaped both. Ellawen Thaler stood in the quiet glow of the hall, a living bridge between memory and forgetting, peace and truth. The burden she carried was immense, but it was purposeful, and she bore it not as a punishment, but as a choice, one thread at a time. The last pattern at dawn. Dawn approached not as light, but as strain. Dreamland felt stretched thin, as though its fabric had been pulled too tightly in too many places at once. Ellawen Thaler sensed it long before the hall reflected it. The air around her had grown heavy, resistant, each breath carrying a faint ache. The loom trembled beneath her hands, not violently, but with a constant, weary shudder, like something holding itself together through sheer will. She had woven too much, or perhaps too deeply. Legends once silenced now stirred everywhere. There, truths rippling outward through Dreamland. Valleys remembered battles they had forgotten. Towers echoed with names no one had spoken in centuries, and time itself seemed uncertain of where it was meant to flow. The loom had restored what was lost, but the present could not bear the full weight of the past returning all at once. Eloin stood in the hall, her posture steady despite the exhaustion that pressed into her bones. She felt hollowed and full. At the same time, her inner world reshaped by what she had given. Some memories were distant now, softened beyond recall. Certain emotions no longer rose as sharply as they once had, replaced by something quieter, broader, less personal. She was still herself, but altered, like a melody played in a new key. The loom's glow had shifted. Where once individual threads shone distinctly, now their lights blurred together, colors bleeding softly into one another. The pattern beneath her hands felt unstable, unfinished in a dangerous way. Alawan knew with calm certainty that she stood at the edge of collapse. One more careless weave could unravel everything Dreamland, the restored legends, and herself. She closed her eyes and listened, not just to the whispers in the threads, but to the silence beneath them. There she felt it, the truth she had been circling since the beginning. The loom was not asking her to choose between past and present. It was asking her to reimagine how they could exist together. The legends did not need to rule reality again. They did not need to reclaim their former places, their old power, their rigid truths. They needed to be held, remembered, and allowed to breathe without overwhelming the living world. They needed to become dreams. Alawan exhaled slowly, grounding herself in that understanding. The final pattern was not about restoration, it was about transformation. She reached for the threads one last time, her movements deliberate, reverent. The loom responded immediately, its hum deepening, steadying, as if it recognized her intent. This weave felt different from the others. It did not pull at her memories or emotions with the same hunger. Instead, it resonated with what she had become through loss, her balance, her acceptance, her quiet resolve. She began to weave a pattern unlike any she had attempted before. Instead of anchoring legends firmly into the fabric of reality, she guided them into softer alignments, letting their truths diffuse gently through Dreamland's subconscious. Threads of sorrow intertwined with strands of hope, neither overpowering the other. Sacrifice was not erased, but it was no longer a wound left open. Triumph remained, but without dominance. As the pattern grew, the hall changed. The stone walls softened at the edges, light filtering in as though from a sky just beyond sight. The air warmed, carrying a sense of early morning cool, fragile, full of promise. Alawan felt a steady ache within her, but it no longer frightened her. This ache was not loss alone. It was release. The loom responded with profound stillness. For the first time since she had touched it, it did not hum urgently or pulse with demand. It simply existed with her, allowing her to guide the final threads without resistance. She sensed the legends settling into their new form, not fading, not silenced, but resting. They became echoes woven into dreams, stories felt rather than imposed, memories accessible without tearing the present apart as she worked. Images drifted through her awareness, not sharp visions, but impressions. A hero laying down a sword and becoming a lullaby sung to children. A fallen city reshaping itself into a recurring dream that inspired artists and builders without binding them to its ruins. Sacrifices remembered not as commands, but as lessons carried gently forward. Tears slipped down Eloan's cheeks, not from grief alone, but from relief. She felt the strain in Dreamland ease, the tension loosening thread by thread. Time steadied. Places ceased shifting. Reality exhaled, finding its balance again. The cost still came, but differently now. Instead of taking something from her outright, the loom asked for her willingness to let go. She felt herself releasing the need to control the outcome, the desire to preserve every truth perfectly. She accepted that transformation meant change, and change meant uncertainty. That surrender was the final offering. As the last thread settled into place, dawn arrived. Not through windows or doors, but through the weave itself. Soft golden light flowed along the threads, illuminating the hall with a calm, gentle radiance. The loom fell silent, its purpose fulfilled. Illawan stepped back, her hands trembling slightly. She felt lighter and heavier all at once, emptied of the loom's demands, yet filled with its legacy. The hall no longer pressed close around her. It felt open, peaceful, like a space that could finally rest. She stood there for a long moment, simply breathing, letting herself exist without the constant pull of forgotten voices. They were still there, but distant now, carried safely within Dreamland's dreaming heart. They no longer clamored for restoration. They were content to be remembered as dreams, shaping the future without ruling it. Eloan touched her chest, feeling her heartbeat steady and sure. She knew she had changed irrevocably. Some parts of her old self were gone, woven into the tapestry she had created. In their place was something quieter, deeper sense of belonging that extended beyond her own life. She turned away from the loom slowly, respectfully, as one might leave a sacred place after a final prayer. The light dimmed behind her, not extinguished, but settled, becoming part of the hall itself. The loom did not call after her. It did not need to. Its work was done, and so, in a way, was hers. As Eloan stepped forward, the first true light of dawn seemed to follow her, trailing softly at her heels. Dreamland held its breath, then moved forward with her, carrying its past gently, transformed into something that could inspire rather than overwhelm. She did not look back. There was no need. The final pattern had been woven, not to bind Dreamland to what it had been, but to allow it to grow. And Eloan Thaler walked on, changed but whole, leaving behind not silence, but harmony. The quiet tapestry silence returned to the hall, not as emptiness, but as completion. The loom stood still at its center, threads resting in gentle alignment. Their glow softened to a calm, steady warmth. It no longer hummed, no longer stirred, with expectation or hunger. Its presence felt settled, like a deep breath finally released. Eloan Thaler stood before it, hands lowered at her sides, sensing with quiet certainty that its work was done. The hall itself seemed different now. The walls no longer leaned inward with watchful tension, nor did they shimmer with instability. Light rested easily on the stone, as if it had always belonged there. The air felt clear, balanced, carrying neither urgency nor sorrow. Dreamland had found its footing again, not by forgetting what had shaped it, but by holding those truths, gently, without strain. Alawan remained still for a long moment, listening. There were no whispers pressing against her thoughts, no restless echoes tugging at her awareness. The countless legends she had woven were still present, but they no longer demanded attention. They existed like distant constellations, visible when sought, meaningful without overwhelming the sky. She felt the absence of the loom's pull most clearly within herself. For so long, it had been entwined with her heartbeat, her breath, her emotions. Now there was space where that bond had been, not hollow, but open. She could feel herself, again, as an individual, even as she carried the imprint of everything she had given. Alawan took a slow step back, then another. The loom did not respond. It did not reach for her or draw her closer. It simply remained quiet and complete, its purpose fulfilled. She turned away at last and began to walk through the hall. Her footsteps echoed softly, unhurried, as though the space itself respected her pace. With each step, she became more aware of how deeply she had changed. Her memories no longer aligned perfectly with who she had been when she first entered Dreamland's forgotten edge. Certain details were blurred, certain emotions muted or transformed. Yet, she did not feel diminished. What she had lost had not vanished into nothingness. It had become part of something larger, something enduring. As she moved, impressions rose gently within her, not sharp recollections, but quiet understandings. She sensed where legends rested now, how they flowed through Dreamland like underground rivers, nourishing without flooding. She could feel the places where stories would surface in dreams, art, and intuition, guiding without commanding. This awareness was not intrusive. It did not weigh on her mind. It simply existed as natural as breath. Alawan realized then that the loom's final gift had not been the transformation of Dreamland alone, but the transformation of her role within it. She was no longer bound to the act of weaving, no longer required to stand at the center of unraveling truths. Instead, she carried something quieter and deeper, guardianship. She stepped beyond the hall, emerging into the open spaces of Dreamland. Dawn had fully arrived, spreading soft light across the landscape. The world felt calm, grounded, awake in a gentle way. Hills rested where they belonged. Paths led where they always had. Time flowed forward without resistance. Yet beneath that familiarity, she could sense the subtle difference. Dreamland remembered now, not sharply, not painfully, but honestly. Its past was no longer sealed away nor forced into the present. It lived in balance, accessible through reflection, creativity, and quiet moments of connection. Alawan walked slowly, letting the world meet her as it was. She noticed how the light caught on leaves, how the air carried faint echoes of song without any clear source. These were not disruptions, they were expressions, small reminders of stories carried forward with care. She paused near a rise, overlooking a wide expanse of land, and stood there, hands loosely folded, her posture relaxed. A gentle breeze moved through her hair, and she closed her eyes briefly, feeling the steadiness of the moment. There was no urgency pulling her onward, no task demanding completion. For the first time since she had touched the loom, she felt fully present. When she opened her eyes, she understood that her path would not lead her back to who she had been before. That version of herself belonged to a world that no longer existed, just as the unaltered legends belonged to a dreamland that could not endure them unchanged. What lay ahead was quieter, but not lesser. She would walk Dreamland now, not as a weaver bound to a loom, but as a living keeper of its stories. She would recognize when echoes stirred too strongly, when memories pressed too close to waking reality. She would guide, not by force or creation, but by presence, by reminding Dreamland and those within it how to listen without being overwhelmed. The responsibility felt real, but it did not weigh on her shoulders as the loom once had. It rested within her instead, balanced and steady. She did not need to act constantly. Much of her role would be waiting, observing, trusting the harmony she had helped shape. Elawan continued walking, her steps carrying her forward into the unfolding day. The path ahead was not defined, and she did not need it to be. She carried Dreamland stories not as burdens, but as quiet companions, woven into her awareness without demanding her sacrifice. As she moved farther from the hall, the loom faded from her senses entirely. It remained where it belonged, silent and complete, no longer the axis around which everything turned. Dreamland did not need it now. It had learned how to hold itself. Elawan felt a soft gratitude settle within her, not triumphant, not loud, but deep and enduring. Gratitude for the legends who had trusted her, for the loom that had guided her without deception, and for the self she had become through loss, choice, and transformation. She stopped once more and looked out across Dreamland, her expression calm and thoughtful. In that moment, she was neither past nor future, neither weaver nor legend. She was simply Elawan, thaler changed, grounded, and quietly whole. The world continued around her, balanced and awake, its tapestry complete, not because every thread was perfect, but because each one had found its place. And as Elawan stepped forward again, carrying Dreamland's stories within her, the quiet harmony she left behind did not fade. It endured. Thank you for listening to the Loom of Lost Legends. May its quiet echoes follow you into rest. If this story brought you comfort, you're always welcome back. Until next time, sleep gently and dream softly. This has been Whispers of the Night.